Jake Morrison felt his ship shake hard as warning lights flashed red all around him. The navigation system had failed 3 hours ago, and now the engines were dying too. His research vessel, Aurora, was falling toward the planet below, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Jake grabbed the emergency controls and tried to slow the crash, but the ship hit the ground with a loud bang that threw him against the wall. Jake woke up, his head hurt, and smoke filled the cabin. He checked himself for broken bones, but found only cuts and bruises. The ship was badly damaged and would not fly again without major repairs. Jake looked out the broken window and saw a strange world with purple grass and 2 small suns in the orange sky. The air outside seemed safe to breathe according to his sensors. Jake put on his tool belt and emergency pack, then walked outside. The crash had left a long mark in the purple ground and scattered metal pieces everywhere. His ship would need parts he did not have and tools he could not make alone. Jake started walking toward some hills in the distance, hoping to find water and maybe shelter. After walking for 2 hours, Jake heard a sound like singing coming from behind some large rocks. He moved carefully toward the noise and saw the most amazing thing he had ever witnessed. A group of tall beings with skin that looked like crystal were gathered around someone lying on the ground. Their skin glowed with soft blue and green lights that moved in patterns across their bodies. Jake had never seen any alien race like this before. The beings were about 8 feet tall, with long, thin arms and legs. Their faces were gentle, with large areas where eyes should be, but Jake could see that the one on the ground had dark, empty spaces instead of the glowing patches the others had. The group was making soft musical sounds, and touching the injured one with care. Jake stayed hidden and watched. The aliens seemed peaceful and were clearly trying to help their hurt friend. Jake could see that the one on the ground was in pain, and the others looked very sad. Their skin lights flickered in ways that seemed like they were talking to each other without words. One of the standing aliens turned toward where Jake was hiding. Jake thought about running, but the alien did not seem afraid or angry. Instead, it made a gentle sound, and the others looked at Jake too. Jake slowly stood up with his hands where they could see them to show he meant no harm. The alien stepped back, but did not run away. Jake pointed to himself and said his name slowly. The aliens looked at each other, and their skin lights moved faster. One of them pointed to the hurt alien on the ground and made a sound that might have been a name. Jake listened carefully and thought it sounded like Keth. Jake walked closer very slowly and knelt down near the injured alien. Up close he could see that where Keth should have had eyes, there were only damaged crystal pieces. It looked like some kind of accident had destroyed the parts of his face that let him see. The other aliens watched Jake carefully, but let him look at their friend. Jake had been a medic in the military before becoming an engineer. He knew about treating injuries and could see that Keth had been blind for some time. The crystal pieces were trying to heal, but they were too badly broken. Jake looked up at the other aliens and pointed to his own eyes, then to Keth. He shook his head to show that Keth could not see. The aliens made sad sounds, and their lights dimmed. One of them, who seemed older than the others, stepped forward. This alien had more complex light patterns and seemed to be the leader. Jake pointed to himself, then to Keth, and made gestures to show he wanted to help. The leader alien looked at the others, and they had what looked like a discussion using their skin lights. After a few minutes, a leader alien nodded and made welcoming sounds. The group carefully picked up Keth and started walking toward the hills. They looked back at Jake and made sounds that clearly meant he should follow them. Jake gathered his pack and walked with the strange group as the 2 suns began to set. The aliens led Jake to a beautiful village built into the hillside. The buildings seemed to be grown rather than built, and they glowed with the same soft lights as the alien skin. Other villagers came out to see Jake and their lights flickered with what seemed like curiosity rather than fear. Children with smaller light patterns hid behind adults, but peeked out to look at the strange visitor. The leader alien took Jake to a large building in the center of the village. Inside, Jake saw that Keth was lying on a soft bed made of something that looked like living plants. Other aliens were caring for him with gentle touches and soft sounds. Jake could see that they loved Keth and were doing everything they could to help him, but they did not know how to fix his damaged eyes. Jake sat down near Keth and looked closely at the injury. The crystal structures were completely shattered and would never grow back properly on their own. But Jake began to think that maybe there was another way to help. His ship had optical sensors and neural interface equipment. If he could combine human technology with whatever these aliens used for sight, he might be able to give Keth his vision back. The leader alien seemed to understand that Jake was thinking about how to help. It brought Jake food that tasted like sweet fruit and showed him a place where he could sleep. As Jake lay down that night, he looked up at the strange stars and began planning how he might build something to help his new alien friend see again. The morning, Jake planned to test the healing exosuit. The entire village gathered around Keth's resting place. Even aliens from neighboring villages had come to watch this historic moment. Jake felt the weight of everyone's hopes as he made final adjustments to the device. The suit looked beautiful with its blend of human metal and circuits woven together, with living alien biofibers that glowed softly in the morning light. Keth sat calmly as Jake carefully fitted the headpiece over his damaged eyes. The bioneural connections had been grown specifically for Keth's brain patterns, and they attached gently to nerve endings around his eye area. Jake connected the optical sensors and checked all the electronic systems one more time. Everything showed green lights on his portable computer. Jake looked at Nalthara, who made encouraging sounds and flashed supportive light patterns on her skin. Other village elders gathered close while younger aliens watched from a distance. The excitement in the air was so thick Jake could almost taste it. He took a deep breath and activated the healing exosuit's power systems. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Keth sat very still with the device humming quietly on his head and shoulders. Jake watched the computer readings and saw that all systems were working properly. The optical sensors were gathering light information, and the bioneural networks were processing the signals. But Keth had not moved or made any sounds. Then suddenly, Keth made a sharp gasping noise, and his hands flew up toward the headpiece. Jake started to reach for the emergency shutdown, but Keth held up one hand to stop him. Tears were running down Keth's face as he slowly turned his head from side to side. The bioneural fibers on the headpiece began glowing brighter as they synchronized with Keth's brain patterns. Keth spoke his first words in his own language, and all the watching aliens burst into joyful sounds. Jake did not understand the words, but he could see from everyone's reactions that Keth was describing what he could see. Keth looked directly at Jake and spoke again. This time, Jake's computer translated the words as "Thank you, my friend." But the real miracle came when Keth looked at Nalthara and the other aliens. The suit's advanced sensors could read the light patterns on alien skin and translate them into visual information that Keth's brain could understand. For the first time since his accident, Keth could participate in the silent light language that was so important to alien culture. The conversation that followed was amazing to watch as aliens all over the village began flashing complex light patterns, and Keth responded with joy. Jake realized that the suit was working even better than he had hoped. The human optical sensors could see across a much wider range of light than natural alien eyes. This meant Keth could now see things that other aliens could not detect. When Jake pointed this out to Keth and had his computer explain it, the alien was amazed. Keth stood up carefully and began walking around the village. He moved with confidence for the first time since Jake had met him. The suit's enhanced vision let him see small details and distant objects that impressed even the other aliens. Children followed Keth around the village as he pointed out things he could see that they could not. Over the following days, Keth learned to use all the features of his healing exosuit. The suit could switch between different types of vision and could even see in complete darkness using infrared sensors. The bioneural networks adapted to Keth's preferences and became more efficient at processing visual information. Soon Keth was seeing better than he ever had, even before his accident. The success of the healing exosuit changed everything in the village. The aliens began to see Jake not as a strange visitor, but as a true friend and ally. They started sharing their most advanced biotechnology secrets with him and asking him to teach them about human engineering methods. Jake found himself becoming an unofficial ambassador between human and alien ways of thinking. Jake also began working on repairing his ship using a combination of human and alien technology. The aliens showed him how to grow biomechanical components that were stronger and more efficient than purely mechanical parts. In return, Jake taught them how to build electronic systems that could work with their biological technology. The collaboration led to breakthrough discoveries that neither species could have made alone. Jake learned to create self-repairing materials using alien biotechnology, while the aliens learned to build precise mechanical systems using human engineering principles. Together, they developed new types of technology that combined the best features of both approaches. Keth became the bridge between the two species. His enhanced vision allowed him to see both human electronic signals and alien biopatterns in ways that helped translate between the different technologies. Keth spent hours working with Jake and the alien engineers to create new hybrid devices that neither species had imagined before. The village transformed as human and alien. Technologies began merging. Buildings started incorporating electronic systems that worked seamlessly with living bioarchitectural elements. Tools became smarter and more adaptable by combining alien biotechnology with human programming. Even simple daily tasks became easier and more efficient. Jake's ship repairs progressed faster than he had expected thanks to alien help. The biomechanical hybrid systems were not only stronger than the original components, but they could adapt and self-repair in ways that purely mechanical systems could not. Jake began to think that his ship would actually be better than it had been before the crash. But more importantly, Jake felt like he had found a new home among the aliens. They had accepted him completely and made him part of their community. Jake had learned their language and customs while teaching them about human culture and values. The friendship between Jake and Keth had grown into a partnership that was changing both their peoples. As Jake's ship neared completion, he faced a difficult decision. He could return to human space and report his discoveries, or he could stay with the aliens and continue developing the amazing hybrid technologies they were creating together. The aliens made it clear that he was welcome to stay as long as he wanted, and that they hoped he would choose to remain with them. Jake was leaning toward staying when his ship's long-range sensors detected something that changed everything. Large ships were approaching the star system, and they were not friendly exploration vessels. The readings showed massive warships with weapon signatures that meant only one thing. Someone had discovered this peaceful world, and they were coming. With conquest in mind, the golden age of cooperation between Jake and the aliens was about to face its greatest test. Jake stared at his ship's sensor display and felt his blood turn cold. The approaching fleet was massive, with at least 20 large warships and dozens of smaller attack vessels. The lead ship was enormous, and its energy signature matched descriptions of Emperor Thax's personal battleship, the Sovereign's Fist. Jake had heard stories about the Emperor's brutal conquest campaigns across the galaxy, but had never imagined he would encounter them personally. Jake ran from his ship back to the village as fast as he could. When he arrived, he found Keth and Nalthara discussing something with worried expressions. Jake's computer quickly translated his urgent warning about the approaching warships. The alien skin patterns immediately shifted to colors Jake had. Learned meant fear and alarm. The aliens had avoided galactic politics for hundreds of years by staying hidden on their remote world. They had no military forces and no weapons designed for warfare. Their entire culture was built around peace and cooperation. Jake realized with growing horror that these gentle people were completely defenseless against the Emperor's war machine. Nalthara gathered the village leaders for an emergency meeting. Through his computer, Jake explained everything he knew about Emperor Thax and his Dominion coalition. The Emperor conquered peaceful worlds and enslaved their populations to work in his factories and mines. Species with useful technology were forced to share their knowledge, while those who resisted were destroyed completely. The aliens listened with growing terror as Jake described what would happen when the Emperor's forces arrived. They would demand immediate surrender and the transfer of all biotechnology research to the Dominion. Any resistance would result in orbital bombardment that would destroy entire cities. The Emperor was known for making examples of worlds that did not submit quickly enough. Jake felt terrible guilt, knowing that his presence had probably led the Emperor to this world. Imperial scouts must have detected his ship's crash landing and investigated the system. When they discovered the advanced alien biotechnology and learned that a human was already here, sharing knowledge, the Emperor would have seen a perfect opportunity for conquest. The first ships arrived in orbit just 3 days later. Jake watched through his sensors as massive vessels took positions around the planet. The Emperor's flagship was even larger than Jake had imagined, with weapon arrays that could destroy entire continents. Smaller ships began deploying scanning equipment to map the planet's surface and locate population centers. The Emperor's first communication was broadcast to the entire planet in multiple languages, including the alien tongue. A cold mechanical voice announced that the world was now claimed by the Dominion Coalition and that all inhabitants must surrender immediately. Any resistance would be met with complete destruction. Jake tried to establish communication with the human space navy using his ship's emergency transmitters, but the Emperor's jamming systems blocked all outgoing signals. The aliens were trapped on their own world with no way to call for help. Jake realized that any rescue would have to come from within. The aliens began evacuating their most vulnerable populations to underground shelters, but Jake knew these would not protect them from the Emperor's advanced weapons. The orbital bombardment systems could penetrate deep into the planet's crust and destroy anything hiding below the surface. On the 4th day after the fleet's arrival, small landing ships began ascending to the planet's surface. Jake watched through Keth's enhanced vision as alien soldiers poured out of the vessels. The Emperor's troops were heavily armed and moved with military precision as they secured landing zones and began advancing toward alien settlements. The soldiers were not all the same species, but they all wore the same dark armor with the Emperor's symbol. Jake recognized some as mercenaries from warrior races who sold their services to the highest bidder. Others looked like conscripts from previously conquered worlds who had been forced to serve in the Emperor's army. Jake made a desperate decision to try negotiating with the Emperor directly. He activated his ship's communication systems and requested a meeting with the Emperor himself. To Jake's surprise, the Emperor agreed to see him, but demanded that Jake come aboard the flagship alone and unarmed. Jake said goodbye to Keth and the other aliens, knowing he might never see them again. Keth wanted to come with him, but Jake insisted that his friend stay hidden with the other villagers. If the negotiation failed, Keth would need to help organize resistance efforts using his enhanced vision abilities. The Emperor's shuttle picked up Jake from his ship and transported him to the massive flagship orbiting above. The ship's interior was dark and intimidating, with corridors lined with weapons and trophies from conquered worlds. Jake was escorted by silent guards to a throne room where Emperor Thax waited. Emperor Thax was larger than Jake had expected, with pale skin and cold eyes that showed no emotion. He wore elaborate robes decorated with symbols of his many conquests. The throne room was filled with advisors and military officers from different species, all serving their emperor with the absolute loyalty. The emperor spoke to Jake in perfect human language, explaining that he had been watching Jake's activities on the alien world with great interest. The combination of human engineering and alien biotechnology had created possibilities that the emperor found very valuable. The emperor offered Jake a position as chief engineer in his research division, with wealth and power beyond imagination. Jake refused the emperor's offer and tried to negotiate for the aliens' freedom. He argued that the aliens were peaceful and posed no threat to the emperor's domain. But Emperor Thax laughed at Jake's words and explained that peaceful species made the best slaves because they did not waste energy on rebellion. The emperor gave Jake one final choice. Jake could join the Dominion willingly and help develop hybrid technologies for military use, or he could watch as the alien world was destroyed completely. The emperor had already decided to take the alien biotechnology by force, and Jake's cooperation would only determine whether any aliens survived the conquest. Jake asked for time to consider the emperor's ultimatum and was given 24 hours to make his decision. As Jake was escorted back to his shuttle, he began planning something the emperor would never expect. Jake was not going to surrender or negotiate anymore. He was going to fight back using every trick he had learned as both an engineer and a soldier. The real war for the alien world was about to begin. Jake returned to the alien village with a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. He gathered Keth and the village leaders around his portable computer and began explaining his idea. Instead of building weapons to fight the emperors, forces, Jake wanted to use the healing exosuit technology in a completely different way. Jake had realized that the biomechanical integration principles from Keth's healing suit could be applied to much larger systems. If they could modify the aliens' bioships with human defensive technology and tactical systems, they might be able to evacuate large numbers of people before the Emperor's forces could stop them. The aliens had living ships that were grown rather than built and could adapt to different situations. These bioships were fast and maneuverable, but had no weapons or shields. Jake's plan was to integrate human defensive systems with the living ships to create hybrid vessels that could protect refugees during evacuation. Keth volunteered to be the first test pilot for the hybrid ship project. His healing exosuit already proved that human and alien technology could work together perfectly. Keth's enhanced vision would also be crucial for piloting ships during combat situations where normal alien sight might not be enough. Working through the night, Jake and the alien engineers began modifying the largest bioship in the village. They installed human shield generators and sensor arrays, while the alien biotechnology adapted to integrate with the new systems. The result was a ship that looked organic, but had capabilities that neither species could have achieved alone. Just as they finished the first hybrid ship, Jake's sensors detected an incoming human vessel. A small scout ship was approaching the system despite the Emperor's blockade. Jake managed to establish brief contact and learned that Captain Rex Hamilton aboard the ship Venture had received Jake's earlier distress signals and was coming to investigate. Jake used his computer to send Captain Hamilton detailed information about the Emperor's fleet positions and the alien evacuation plan. Captain Hamilton was shocked to learn about the peaceful aliens and immediately agreed to help coordinate rescue efforts. The captain also revealed that he had already sent emergency signals to the human space navy requesting immediate assistance. Emperor Thax detected the human scout ship and demanded that Captain Hamilton surrender immediately. When the captain refused, the Emperor ordered his ships to destroy the venture, but Captain Hamilton was an experienced pilot who managed to evade the attack ships, using the planet's moons for cover. The Emperor became furious at this defiance and ordered immediate bombardment of alien population centers. Jake watched in horror as energy beams from orbit began destroying alien cities. The Emperor's patience had run out, and he was now determined to take what he wanted by force, regardless of how many aliens died in the process. Jake and Keth launched their hybrid ship along with several other modified vessels that the alien pilots had volunteered to fly. The biomechanical ships performed better than Jake had hoped with human shields, protecting them from enemy fire, while alien biotechnology allowed them to change course instantly to avoid missiles. The evacuation began as hybrid ships darted between the Emperor's vessels to rescue aliens from burning cities. Keth's enhanced vision allowed him to spot refugees that other pilots missed, and his ship could carry more people, thanks to biological compartments that expanded as needed. Captain Hamilton provided crucial support by using his ship's weapons to distract enemy fighters and create gaps in their formation. The venture was heavily outgunned, but the captain's skill and determination kept him alive long enough to help several evacuation runs succeed. Jake realized that they needed to do more than just evacuate people. The Emperor would follow the refugees wherever they went and continue his conquest campaign against other peaceful worlds. Jake made the difficult decision to broadcast detailed records of the Emperor's war crimes to the entire galaxy using the hybrid ship's communication systems. The broadcasts showed the Emperor's forces destroying hospitals and schools while enslaving civilian populations. Jake's recordings proved that Emperor Thax was committing genocide against peaceful species and violating every galactic law regarding warfare. The broadcasts spread rapidly through subspace networks despite the Emperor's jamming attempts. Emperor Thax became enraged when he learned about the broadcasts and demanded to face Jake personally. The Emperor deployed his personal combat shuttle and challenged Jake to single combat with the fate of the alien world hanging in the balance. Jake accepted the challenge, knowing it might be the only way to buy time for more evacuations. The confrontation took place in space between the fleets, with both sides watching. Jake piloted one of the hybrid ships, while the Emperor flew his heavily armed combat shuttle. The battle tested every skill Jake had learned as both a pilot and engineer, as he used the biomechanical ship's unique capabilities to survive the Emperor's attacks. Jake did not try to destroy the Emperor's shuttle, but instead used the hybrid ship systems to demonstrate the power of cooperative technology. He showed how healing and protection were stronger than conquest and destruction by using the ship's biomechanical systems to repair damage while fighting. The Emperor's shuttle was more heavily armed, but Jake's hybrid ship could adapt and regenerate in ways that confused and frustrated the Emperor. Jake used this advantage to disable the Emperor's weapons without killing him, while broadcasting a message about the power of cooperation between different species. At the climactic moment of the battle, massive human warships appeared at the edge of the star system. Admiral Scott Parker, aboard the battleship Liberty, had received Captain Hamilton's distress signals and arrived with a full battle fleet. The human ships immediately moved to protect the alien world and demanded the Emperor's immediate withdrawal. Faced with superior human military forces and growing galactic condemnation of his actions, Emperor Thax had no choice but to retreat. The galactic community had seen Jake's broadcasts and was demanding justice for the Emperor's war crimes. Several allied species were already mobilizing fleets to stop the Emperor's expansion. Emperor Thax withdrew his forces, but promised that this was not over. He had learned valuable lessons about human-alien cooperation and would return better prepared. But for now, the alien world was safe, and Jake had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Jake chose to remain with the aliens as an official ambassador and continued developing hybrid technologies with Keth and the other engineers. Keth became the first alien to address the Galactic Council, and his healing exosuit became a symbol of what different species could achieve by working together. The human-alien research station that Jake and Keth established became a model for peaceful cooperation throughout the galaxy. They shared their healing and enhancement technologies freely with other species and created new forms of partnership that challenged the empire-building approach of powers like the Dominion Coalition. Jake had crashed on an alien world as a stranded engineer, but had become something much more important. He had become proof that humans would always choose to help rather than harm, and that cooperation could overcome even the greatest challenges the galaxy could present. Jake woke up early the next morning with new ideas filling his head. He had spent half the night thinking about how to help Keth see again. The aliens had given him a soft bed in a room that glowed with gentle light from the walls themselves. Everything in this village seemed to be alive in some way. After eating breakfast with the aliens, Jake walked back to his crashed ship. He needed to see what equipment he could save from the wreck. The walk took him 2 hours, but he found the ship right where he had left it. Jake climbed inside and started taking apart the sensor systems and computer parts he would need. His ship had advanced optical cameras that could see in many different types of light. There were also neural interface cables that pilots used to connect directly with ship computers. Jake had an idea that maybe he could combine these human tools with the way the aliens naturally use light to communicate and see. When Jake returned to the village carrying a heavy bag of equipment, the aliens gathered around him with interest. Their skin lights flickered in complex patterns as they looked at the strange human devices. Jake sat down near Keth and began showing the equipment to the alien leader, whose name sounded like an AL single quotes THAR. Jake pointed to one of the optical sensors, then to his own eyes. He made it clear that this device could see things just like eyes could. Then he pointed to Keth and to the sensor to show that maybe the device could help Keth see. Now Thara watched carefully and seemed to understand what Jake was trying to explain. The hard part was figuring out how alien biology worked. Jake needed to understand how Keth's brain processed sight before he could build anything to help. He spent hours looking at the crystal structures around Keth's damaged eyes and comparing them to the healthy eyes of other aliens. The crystals seemed to work like biological computers that turned light into signals the brain could understand. Keth himself became Jake's best teacher. Even though he could not see, Keth was very smart and patient. Using simple gestures and sounds, Keth began showing Jake how alien sight worked. Keth would touch Jake's hand and then touch his own damaged eye area while making specific sounds. Slowly, Jake began to understand that the aliens did not just see regular light, but could also see the light patterns that moved across each other's skin. This was much more complex than Jake had first thought. The aliens used their glowing skin patterns to talk to each other without making sounds. Keth's blindness had cut him off from this important part of alien culture. Not only could he not see the world around him, but he could not read the light language that his people used every day. Jake realized he would need to build something that could do 2 jobs. First, it needed to let Keth see the regular world, like trees and rocks and other aliens. Second, it needed to read the skin light patterns and turn them into something Keth could understand. This was going to be much harder than just replacing damaged eyes. Working with Thara and other village leaders, Jake began learning about alien technology. The aliens were amazing at growing things and shaping living materials, but they did not use metal and circuits like humans did. Everything they made was biological and worked by growing rather than being built. Their tools were actually living, creatures that had been trained to do specific jobs. Jake showed the aliens how human technology worked by demonstrating his portable computer and sensors. The aliens were fascinated by devices that were not alive, but could still process information and perform tasks. Some of the younger aliens seemed especially interested in learning about human engineering methods. As days passed, Jake and the aliens began sharing knowledge. Jake learned how to shape the living materials the aliens used, while the aliens learned about human electronics and programming. Jake's computer contained an AI assistant named Lisa that helped translate between human and alien languages. Lisa was amazed by the alien biotechnology and began creating new programs to interface with living systems. The breakthrough came when Jake realized he could combine human sensors with alien bio-neural networks. Instead of trying to replace Keth's damaged eyes with purely mechanical devices, Jake could create a hybrid system. Human optical sensors would gather light information, and alien biocomputers would process that information in ways that Keth's brain could understand. Jake began building the first prototype with help from several alien engineers. They grew special bio-neural fibers that could carry signals from electronic sensors to Keth's nervous system. The work was delicate and required both human precision engineering and alien biological expertise. Keth spent time every day with Jake learning about the project. Jake could see that having hope again was already helping Keth feel better. The other aliens also seemed happier now that they had a plan to help their friend. The whole village became involved in the project, with different families contributing materials and knowledge. After 2 weeks of careful work, Jake had created the basic framework for what he was calling a healing exosuit. It looked like a lightweight harness that would fit over Keth's shoulders and chest, with a headpiece that covered the damaged eye area. The human sensors were integrated with alien bio-neural networks that could be grown to match Keth's specific brain patterns. The most exciting part was that the suit would not just restore Keth's normal vision. The human sensors could see types of light that alien eyes could not detect naturally. This meant Keth might actually have better sight than he had before his accident. The bio-neural networks could also amplify the skin-light communications that were so important to alien culture. Jake tested each component carefully before putting them together. The alien bioengineers had grown neural interfaces that were perfectly compatible with Keth's nervous system. Jake's electronic sensors had been calibrated to detect all the types of light that were important to alien life and communication. As Jake prepared for the first real test of the healing exosuit, he felt both excited and nervous. If the device worked, it would not only help Keth, but would also prove that humans and aliens could accomplish amazing things by working together. If it failed, Jake worried that he might accidentally hurt his new friend. But Keth trusted Jake completely and was eager to try the device that might give him back his sight and his place in alien society.